Welcome here to Washington. So hundreds arrested, landmarks defaced, property destroyed. And remember, it was at this very time yesterday, essentially right around now, when the situation started to escalate again in Southern California. Our eyes are on LA throughout the hour here on the Hill. And at this moment, or in about 20 minutes or so, the president on the move. Why he is headed to that place right there. We normally don't talk about the red carpet here on the Hill, but there is a good reason why tonight as the president heads to the Kennedy Center. Plus, the makeup after the breakup, is that what you call it? What we're learning tonight about the reported phone call between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. But first tonight here from the Hill, not only does the White House respond, but so too does the mayor of Los Angeles.
Our United States Marines and the National Guardsmen and women who are on the ground right now are helping to create a peaceful environment for ICE and Border Patrol, who were being, again, hailed with rocks, who were being violently and viciously attacked.
When you start deploying federalized troops on the heels of these raids, it is a drastic and chaotic escalation and completely unnecessary.
Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. Congresswoman Nancy Mace set to join us here in a moment, but we begin tonight once again on the streets of Los Angeles, and the very latest on the ground there are Nancy Liu live tonight in LA once again. Nancy, it was basically this time last night where you said to me, hey Blake, I'm starting to notice things, it's starting to pick up, and you were on it bang within 10, 15 minutes. We saw that. What are you seeing? What are you hearing tonight, Nancy?
A much different scene right now. You can see the traffic behind me. It is open in front of the Federal Detention Center, but you can see also about 50 to 75 demonstrators. And look, we've got a California Republic flag. We're seeing American flags. I see one Mexican flag in there, but for the moment, the American and California flags actually outnumber Mexican flags. From time to time, we do see federal vehicles pulling into the loading dock, and the protesters will yell. But Blake, using yesterday as a barometer at this hour, a far different scene, because this, street shut down. 50 to 100 people at this hour taken into custody yesterday, but a far different scene right now. It remains to be seen whether this is going to hold, because we know LAPD is nearby. They're at both corners. They're keeping an eye on this crowd because and if they cause a closure, it could quickly escalate into what we saw at this hour yesterday, Blake. So we're keeping an eye.
Our Nancy Liu live tonight once again on the streets of LA. Nancy, as any events warrant, will come to you throughout the hour. The Los Angeles Mayor, Karen Bass, held a press conference this afternoon, and she is calling for the ICE raids to end.
I want to speak to the president, and that I want him to understand the significance of what is happening here. And we all stand in support and solidarity and call for the raids to end.
But as the scene continues there in Los Angeles, the demonstrations igniting protests, in some cases riots as well. And in several major U.S. cities, they're picking up from LA. These are just a few of the scenes. New York, Denver, Chicago, Baltimore as well. There have been more than about 350 arrests nationwide. Los Angeles and New York City accounting for the majority, of course. The White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, gave a quote-unquote unequivocal warning from the podium today.
Let this be an unequivocal message to left-wing radicals in other parts of the country who are thinking about copycatting the violence in an effort to stop this administration's mass deportation efforts. You will not succeed.
Earlier today, the South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace and her colleague from Texas, Congressman Brandon Gill, co-introduced what's known as the Lawless Cities Accountability Act. That bill would withdraw federal funds from cities like Los Angeles that are, quote, lawless jurisdictions that are refusing to accept help from federal law enforcement. The Congresswoman from South Carolina, Nancy Mace, back with us once again here on the Hill. She's also a member of the Oversight Committee. Congresswoman, thanks again for being back with us tonight. I wonder if you've heard from the president or heard from Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, about your bill. If so, what have they told you?
No, we have not yet heard about the bill yet. It just got filed this afternoon, and we're looking for co-sponsors. But this is part of Trump's America First agenda. If you are a sanctuary city who wants to defund the police, side with rioters, and refuse help from President Trump, then you should not receive a single dollar from the American taxpayers. And I want to add to your monologue at the beginning there, it wasn't just rioters. I mean, we saw violence, we saw fires, cars lit on fire. There was a dead body in the middle of looting. I mean, this was very violent and scary, and I am very concerned about duplicates and copycats coming up this weekend.
I was speaking to one of your colleagues, a Republican from the other side of the country, there in California, Jay Obernolte. He's a Republican, as I mentioned, and I asked him, Congresswoman, I said, are you worried about possibly the White House or the administration pulling funds from California, which is essentially sort of one of, I guess, a premise of your bill? Here's what he said to me, and I want to get your reaction on the other side.
Okay.
I point out that we have more Republicans in California than any other state in the country. So, don't lump everyone in California in with the actions of a few leaders.
There were 1.18 million voters in Los Angeles County for Donald Trump in 2024. 1.48 million in all of South Carolina, Congresswoman. And the reason why I bring it up is because you heard Jay Obernolte there say, don't harm Republicans. And if you pull federal funds from Los Angeles, in a way, are you potentially harming those many, many voters who voted for the president?
And don't forget Orange County, too, which is a lot of Republican voters in California as well. But this is about law and order. And we have to have pieces that we can negotiate with. You have to threaten sometimes, because you just saw Mayor Karen Bass in L.A. saying, stop the raids, stop deporting criminal illegal aliens who are here. And that's not an option. That's not an answer. And so we have to use the tools in our toolbox to ensure that our mayors and our governors, like Gavin Newsom, are following the law in this country. Because if we don't have laws, we're not a country at all. If we don't have a border, we're not a country at all. And we're seeing Democrats across the country try to sow chaos. They want illegals to vote. They want it to crush the system so that we don't have a real country. And that's why you're seeing so many Democrats fleeing the Democrat Party, because the Democrat Party has become this. They are the party of violence.
Do you worry that you are losing some of the narrative here? Because there was a new poll out today, Congresswoman, from Quinnipiac University. The president is now minus 11 on immigration. He is minus 16 on deportations. These were issues that he had his numbers flipped the other way. He was in the positive at the beginning of his term. Now it's the other way. He's underwater. Why is that happening in your view?
Well, I saw a poll today that was 67% of Americans want to see the mass deportations happen. So I guess it depends on which poll that you believe, and I don't necessarily believe polls either, because they're not always correct. However, I will tell you the sentiment anecdotally that I hear from people is we have to stop this. I mean, our economy is going to get crushed, our healthcare system, education system, and we want people to come here. I mean, America is built on immigration, but we want them to come here legally. So we need to incentivize legal behavior. But while we're deporting people, we should also be looking at our work visas, whether that's H-1B or H-2B visas. I mean, we don't have enough of those, I know, in my district or in my state because of our economic and jobs needs. We've got to increase that, too, while we're talking about it. That's a legal way to come here, work, and go back home.
Congresswoman, I should let our audience know that we've got our cameras right now live there on the White House, the South Portico there, as the president is about to leave. And if he makes comments to the media, we'll carry them live. But let me leave you with this, because you are on the you're on the Armed Services Committee. You're also on the Veterans Affairs Committee. So you have a stake as a member of Congress with the military. The Marines have not yet hit L.A. streets. They've been deployed there. They're at the ready. When do you think the president should make the next move with the Marines?
Well, according to Nancy Liu's report earlier, that if it stays calmer and these are just protests and not violence, not looting, not burning the city down, then they should stand down or stand by. But I'm glad that they're there. They're at the ready to be deployed, because if it gets violent, if it continues to be an insurrection, then they will need to be deployed onto the streets of L.A. And I hope it doesn't have to come to that. But looking at last weekend and all the photos we saw on violence, it almost came to that. But let's hope that California keeps its peaceful.
We'll leave it there. Nancy Mace is the Congresswoman from South Carolina introducing that bill today with us tonight here on the Hill. Thanks for the time. Come on back soon. Joining me now, Mick Mulvaney, former Trump White House Chief of Staff, NewsNation contributor, with us once again here on the Hill. Hello, sir.
Hello, Berman.
Los Angeles is the scene, and then let's show the White House just to explain what's going on there, if you don't mind, because that's the area where the president exits south side of the White House. He's going to be headed on over to the Kennedy Center momentarily. This is where the media stations and if the president ends up speaking, this is where he just walks on over. The microphones are there, etc.
The Kennedy Center, where you've never been?
I've never been. I've never.
You should go to the Kennedy Center. It's not that expensive. It's a wonderful facility.
So I've heard. If you've got free tickets, send them my way. You just heard from the Congresswoman there, and we continue to keep our eyes on Southern California there. There's this federal hearing tomorrow on troops, the National Guard, and we expect a judge to rule on it one way or another. Where do you think the president goes from here?
I think what Nancy said, what Congressman May said is spot on, which is the Marines are there. If things do escalate, they're ready. But if they don't escalate, this is a peaceful protest. You don't need the Marines for a peaceful protest. That's the whole issue here, was that apparently the Democrats think this was a peaceful protest until the National Guard showed up, which makes absolutely no sense to me. What that means is you and I were peacefully protesting. We see a member of the National Guard, and all of a sudden, somehow we're provoked to throw stuff through windows. That makes no sense. But I think what the president's looking at is saying, okay, what's happening on the ground? If it's a peaceful protest, there's no reason for the military. If things get out of hand, they'll be ready.
What do you make of those numbers, polling numbers?
Yeah, we've had, I think it was on Monday, we were on this same program where we had some decent polling numbers for the president. So I want to see in the next couple of days if this was an outlier today or if people really changing their minds. A lot of it depends on you ask the question. Are you for mass deportations? That's a question. Are you for mass deportations of peacefully protesting immigrants versus are you for mass deportations of violent criminals? There's a lot of detail there. Let's wait and see what the next couple of polls look like.
I saw the LA Mayor Karen Bass today say essentially that a phone call is probably coming or likely coming with President Trump. Take me behind the anatomy of a presidential phone call with Donald Trump, because there was the 1 a.m. phone call with Gavin Newsom the other day, and how do you set one up with Karen Bass, and how does all that work?
Do you want the ordinary, or do you want to do the Gavin Newsom one first? Because the Gavin Newsom one is fascinating to me. If you go look at it on the timestamp, because Trump actually posted on the internet that thing from his phone said when the call was at like 1:12 in the morning. That's just Trump being Trump. That's Trump who has Gavin Newsom's phone number and called him. Karen Bass would be a little bit different. They don't have a relationship. He might not even have her number. He can obviously get it. And that would be there'd be on an ordinary phone call like that, there'd be a lot of back channels beforehand. Somebody from the White House would reach out to the mayor's staff. If I were there, I'd call Karen because we have a personal relationship. So if somebody because we used to serve in the Congress together, so if someone there knows her, they might call her directly. But I don't think that Trump would pick up the phone and just call her like he did Newsom.
Got it. We'll leave it there. Mick Mulvaney back with us here later in the show. Thank you, sir. Still to come as all this unfolds. The president, by the way, as we keep those live pictures up, set to have his sights somewhere else. He's leaving for the Kennedy Center any moment now. That's the iconic D.C. Performance Center, where the president is now making some news by taking over leadership there. Why he's headed to the Kennedy Center and the statement he is trying to make with it. When the Hill returns. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Berman, back live, other side of the break, in 4 minutes. The president will depart for the John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts. He's scheduled to attend the opening night of the musical Les Mis. The Kennedy Center is a performing arts institution here in Washington, right on the Potomac River there, just sort of next to the Lincoln Memorial, about a 10-minute drive or so from the White House. It's named, of course, after the late president, honoring his commitment to the arts by hosting more than 2,000 performances annually. Now, after returning to the White House, President Trump did a complete overhaul of the Kennedy Center. He fired the center's board of trustees, named himself chairman as well.
Needs a lot of work. We're going to fix it, make it beautiful. It's a very big part of the fabric of D.C. and the Capitol. We're bringing back the Capitol. We're bringing back our country.
Next year, President Trump also wants the Kennedy Center to be a centerpiece for America's 250th birthday, and we listen live as the Vice President, J.D. Vance, is speaking. Can't hear him, I'm told. Let's go on out to our Judy Kurtz. She's live there on the red carpet. I don't know, maybe the VP's standing there behind her. Judy, hello. This is a This is an interesting one. Normally, we don't cover red carpets here on the Hill, but Judy, the Hill's In the Know columnist, with us live. Judy, can you hear me? Hello, what's going on there behind you?
I sure can, Blake. And you know, Blake, you don't usually cover red carpets. I've been covering red carpets for almost 20 years.
Right.
I have yet to be interrupted by the vice president on a red carpet. He's right behind me now giving some remarks, so I'll try not to speak too loudly to be interrupting him. He's one of the many VIP guests here attending as the first major production to premiere here at the Kennedy Center amid President Trump's takeover. He booted out the Democratic members of the board, installed himself as chairman. Vice President Vance, one of the first guests to arrive here for this production of Les Mis.
What are the critics saying? What are their supporters saying, right? Because there was obviously, look, there's the questions of why the president wanted to go this route. He was talking about the Kennedy Center in his first 100 days of office, right? We played the video of him showing up there. Why is the president doing this? And those who wonder why he's there at all, what's sort of the pushback on the other side?
Well, to steal a line from Les Mis, you know, President Trump dreamed a dream of, you know, wiping out woke, and this seems to be part of that effort. He said he wants to rid wokeness from society. He accused the Kennedy Center of being too woke, in his words. So this is one step and part of that effort to reimagine the arts in what he considers to be acceptable version of the arts, and I think that was part of it. I think also, I'm sorry, I'm just making sure the vice president is not coming up behind me to ask him a question. I think also
if
part
he
of
does,
it
Judy,
is,
I'll let you know. I know we don't do red carpets here, but I've been in your shoes plenty of times. I got your back. If he walks up behind you, I'll let you know.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's like that thing that you do at a fancy party where you're always looking over your shoulder to see.
Golf course, right?
So I apologize, Blake. I'm not trying to ignore you. But I do think it is part of this culture war where President Trump has seized center stage. He's the leading character in this culture war that he has waged. The Kennedy Center takeover is unprecedented and not without backlash, as you mentioned.
The 250th anniversary of the country, right? And the big celebration that the president wants to have next year. He's talked about, Judy, about sort of elevating the Kennedy Center to be a big part of future events, whether it be that or the World Cup or the Olympics or whatever is big. Where do you think he takes it from here?
Yeah, there's been talk of maybe renaming the Kennedy Center after the president. We will certainly ask him about that when he takes the red carpet. And I just want to point out the unprecedented nature of doing a red carpet with the president attending this kind of event. As I mentioned, I've covered countless events here at the Kennedy Center, and this one has a different feel. For one thing, the red carpet itself is kind of on steroids. It's more massive than any previous event that I've covered here.
Right.
And I've never had a commander-in-chief walk down and take the spotlight on a red carpet.
Mick Mulvaney with us as he's...
There we go.
Hold on, here we go.
Yeah,
you can turn around,
see if we
stick
can
the
get
mic in. Yeah, let's see what happens here.
It's about the leaked FBI memo showing it was more widespread than initially understood.
All right, we tried.
You just got the experience of what it's... Yeah, that's the experience. So that's what happens. The president or the vice president walks by and Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, blah, 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 whatever's going on. Our Judy Kurtz live.
In fairness, he did make a few remarks, which we can get to you.
Fair enough, fair enough. The president's set to be there at some point later this hour. Judy's hanging around for us. Judy Kurtz live with us tonight. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Blake.
You got it. Mick Mulvaney with me real quick. Mick, thoughts on what's going on here and what Trump's doing?
Well, it's the biggest, most beautiful red carpet ever. Many people, no one's ever seen any red carpet like this before. So,
why is he getting involved with this?
It's part of the culture war. It's part of the pendulum swing. It's part of the entire sort of pushback from the right against the institutions that the left has controlled for so long.
Pam Bondi, the Attorney General.
And there's a perception, at least among some Republicans, that the left has controlled the theater. Yeah, I think you could sort of make a case for that, probably make a case against it as well. But I was a little surprised when he kicked out everybody. So now it's an exclusively conservative Republican thing. I thought maybe he'd sort of, bring some balance to the board. But, look, I'm not always that good at predicting what the guy does. Nobody is.
All right, Mick, see you later in the show. Hang around. Live events all across the country as we continue tonight here on the Hill. We are back live on the other side of the country, Los Angeles, where protests against ICE continuing for a 6th day. Our Allie Bradley, here's what we're going to do. Our Allie Bradley, live with what she's seeing. Senior advisor to Customs and Border Protection, joining me here on set. And if the president comes out, as we keep our eyes on the south side of the White House there, we'll take him live. Stay with us. Six thirty here on the East Coast. President of the United States just leaving the White House. Mark, did you tell me he was talking? I'm told that he made some very brief comments. When we have those, we'll try to turn them around here on the Hill. The president en route now to the Kennedy Center. But of course, the backdrop here is this: the anti-ICE protests across the country this week, from LA to Chicago, down to Atlanta, up to New York as well. More protests scheduled, we are told, in the coming days. But the White House standing firm. The press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, giving an update on how many illegal immigrants the administration has been able to arrest as it relates to Los Angeles.
Since June 6th, there have been 330 illegal aliens that have been arrested as part of these riots in Los Angeles. 113 of those illegal aliens had prior criminal convictions.
ICE also doubling down on their deportation operations nationwide and around Los Angeles. Yesterday, our Allie Bradley got exclusive footage of an ICE raid on a food plant in Omaha, Nebraska. Over 70 immigrants were caught, some even hiding in freezers. Now today, she's out on the West Coast amid an ongoing targeted operation in the backyard of these protests. Our Allie Bradley live from Paramount, California with the very latest. Allie?
Yeah, hey, Blake, as we continue to see these really large...
Allie's mic down when Allie comes back. Is she with us? We'll get back to Allie Bradley if we can when her microphone gets there. We'll get back to Allie. With me, though, Ron Vitello is a senior advisor over at Customs and Border Protection. Once again with us here on the Hill. Nice to see you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Things ebbing and flowing. So thanks for being with us. As the scene in California unfolds and in Los Angeles unfolds, here was a post from the LA Mayor Karen Bass. Just today. She said, let me be clear. Chasing people through a Home Depot parking lot does not make Los Angeles safer. What would you say to the mayor as it relates to concerns of whether it be Home Depots or other businesses and going there to deport immigrants?
Is she suggesting that LA was in perfect working order until ICE started the largest deportation effort ever contemplated in the United States? Those agents were there for targets that are people that were here in the country illegally and have committed heinous crimes against the citizens of Los Angeles. There also happen to be people in the Home Depot who were here illegally, and the immigration officers and their federal partners don't ignore when people try to run off from them at the sight of uniformed agents.
So I guess that brings up what's the line, right? Because the line from Republican members of Congress who I spoke with yesterday was, we need to go after violent criminals. Not everyone being picked up here is a violent criminal. What's the line?
That's correct. 77 targets were initially sorted on Thursday, and then along the way, we see what ICE calls collateral arrests that are going to happen. Immigration officers, when they find somebody that's in the country illegally, they've broken the law, and those agents are going to arrest people who are in the country illegally.
There was a pastor at the Christian church in Downey. He says a church was raided today. One, did that happen? Two, do we know if more are expected to come?
I'm not aware of that. CBP has personnel on the ground helping and assisting ICE with the targets that they have established and the other things that are going to happen while they're there. First thing, they want to protect the citizens. Second thing, they want to protect each other and the federal property that's there. And then they're also going to conduct the mission. We are going to set the agenda with ICE in the lead for the deportation operation.
Does the agenda include churches?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay.
It includes targets mostly of people who are in the country illegally who have committed crime.
What if they're at a church?
If there's a danger to the community that's represented in those locations, it's on the table.
Okay, it is on the table. Okay. What about, there's a new Quinnipiac University poll today. The president, they were polled about immigration. He was -11 on immigration, -16 on deportations. Do you worry that this issue, which was a plus for the president out on the campaign trail and at the beginning of the administration, has flipped?
Well, I would just ask people to remember how angry we were when over 10,000 people were coming across the border unchecked. The huge open border under Joe Biden. 10,000 people a night with no controls whatsoever. Every system was overwhelmed. I want people to remember how angry we all were when we saw those images. And now this is the result of that. There has to be a reaction. They swung so wildly to an open border. Now the border in large part is under control. Less than 300 people every 24 hours trying to come across the border. So that is in hand now. A lot more to be done, but still in very good shape. Now the deportation efforts exist and we have to react. We didn't swing all the way back to the pendulum didn't swing in this far right direction. The pendulum now is in the middle. The rule of law is going to prevail. That's what the president wants. That's what the secretary has demanded from the front line, and they're out there doing it.
Let me leave you with this. At what we have seen is ICE targeted, right?
100%.
And when it comes to recruitment and it comes to retention of officers, what are you seeing at this point in time?
Well, at CBP, we're seeing record numbers of people in the pipeline for applying. The recruiting is going better than it has in probably 4 or 5 years.
Do you worry this jeopardizes that folks might say, I don't know now?
I don't believe so. I think what we're seeing in the military and what we're seeing on the front line and law enforcement in general, you have a president in the White House, Donald Trump, that is enthusiastic about law enforcement agents having the tools that they need to protect us.
All right, we'll leave it there. Ron Vitello is a senior advisor over at Customs and Border Protection. Thanks for coming in.
Thank
you. Nice to always see you. Appreciate it. Allie Bradley back with us live. Microphones all worked out. Paramount, California. Allie, hello once again. Tell me what you're seeing there.
Yeah, hey, Blake. So, of course, we see the nation watching all of these really large-scale enforcement operations that are unfolding. But there are also agents and officers who are targeting these criminal, illegal immigrants. We've been out with Border Patrol all afternoon today. We're going after a very specific target. This individual, he's actually twice convicted of lewd acts against children under the age of 14. He actually is convicted of grand theft auto. He's also has a prior removal order as well. So he has a lot of charges against him, and he is what Border Patrol is calling the worst of the worst. Take a listen.
Anytime you hurt a child, especially a sexual assault like that, I can't think of anything worse than that. 100% we're optimistic. I'll just say this, we know exactly where he's at, and it's just a matter of time.
And we can confirm here tonight that Border Patrol actually moved their command post from the downtown area because it just was not safe. So they've moved to a location that we're not going to disclose to allow them to maintain that level of safety. But where they were, Blake, they were basically in an underground area with one way in and one way out. So they were essentially 6 jumps as targets. You just talked with Ron Vitello about that specifically. Now, this individual that we went after today, he is still not in custody. David Kim, though, he says they're optimistic. They know where he is. But it really underscores the challenges that they're facing here. These criminal targets, they're not easy to find. It's not low-hanging fruit here, Blake. They have to actually sit on them. They have to do recon on this. This takes time. So these criminal illegal immigrants, it is a process. It is not an easy roundup like what kind of people are protesting right now, Blake.
Our Allie Bradley live tonight in Paramount, California. Allie, thanks so much. As we continue tonight here on the Hill, we are awaiting for the president over at the Kennedy Center. He just left the White House. If it were you and I at 6:30 midweek, it'd probably take about 15 minutes or so to get there. But we don't have the luxuries of the beast and no traffic, so we expect him to show up any moment now. When the president steps to the red carpet, you will watch it live with us here on the Hill. Stay with us. We're back in 4 minutes.
Bill O'Reilly on Cuomo.
Bill, what am I saying that you don't like?
Everything. America's favorite sparring duo with TV's liveliest, most honest debate.
You were right in your analysis.
Tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on NewsNation.
In fact, the police chief said so much. If you look at what his statements were, he said, we're very lucky to have had that. If we weren't there, that city would have been burning to the ground, would be burning right now.
Mr. President, what do you think of actors who are thinking about boycotting tonight?
Summer of unrest. What are you prepared to do, sir?
About what?
If this turns, well, the protests have spread now to 16 cities across the U.S.
Well, I don't know. That's what you're saying. Do I believe you? I don't think so.
Well, I got that.
I can tell you that what we have is a situation in Los Angeles that was caused by gross incompetence. They didn't have the police to handle it. The police were asking us to come in. They were very late. We had to go in to save a lot of ICE officers, as you know, who were held up. They were holed up in a building, and they were being attacked. And the military went in, the National Guard went in and got them. The police weren't able, unfortunately, to move fast enough, but we moved fast enough. And while we were there, we stayed there, and we stopped tremendous destruction and death. We stopped death. We stopped a lot. And if you look at them cutting up and breaking up the sidewalk and getting it and using it as a weapon, did you see that with the curb? Where they're breaking up the curb, nice curb, and they break it up with a hammer because they couldn't get the bricks in. You know, they got caught with the bricks. We have them under arrest. They were bringing bricks in to throw at our police, to throw at our National Guard, and to throw at people. And they couldn't get them in because we got them. And after we got them, they went and took a big hammer and started breaking up the concrete sidewalk and curb, and they were handing it out to people to throw and drop on cars. You saw what they did, the damage. So if you don't do something about that, there's something very wrong. We are going to have law and order in our country. Thank you.
Mr. President, what boycotting tonight?
Who is?
It's been reported that some actors may be boycotting tonight.
I couldn't care less, honestly. All I do is run the country well. The economic numbers, you saw them today, they're setting records. We took $88 billion in tariffs in 2 months, far beyond what anybody expected. There's no inflation. People are happy. People are wealthy. The country is getting back to strength again. That's what I care about. And we're going to have a safe country. We're not going to have what would have happened in Los Angeles. Remember, if I wasn't there, if I didn't act quickly on that, Los Angeles would be burning to the ground right now. Thank you.
Mr. President, could you provide an update on Iran?
How excited are you for the new era under your great new leadership with Ambassador Brunel?
Well, he's a great guy. Rick is great. He's always done well for me. And the new era right here is going to be something. The bones of this facility are incredible. We're going to make it really great.
How excited are you for Les Mis tonight?
Tonight's going to be great.
Mr. President, what would you say to Democrats who don't want to come because you're in charge?
Yes, a question from Newsmax. Could you provide an update on Iran? We're hearing reports that U.S. personnel are being moved out of the region within striking distance.
Well, they are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place, and we'll see what happens. But they are, and we've given notice to move out, and we'll see what happens.
Is there anything that could be done to dial the temperature down in the region?
They can't have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to allow that.
Mr. President, what would you call a Broadway show about your life?
Have you seen the musical before, and do you identify more with Jean Valjean or Javert?
That's a tough one. That last part of that question, that's tough, I think. You better answer that one, honey. I don't know. I've seen it. We've seen it a number of times. It's fantastic. I thought it was just about our first choice. So that's what we got. And we have others coming. Other great ones are coming.
Mr. President, what do you think you have no idea?
So quiet, Jeff.
My question is on trade. Would you be willing to extend the deadline for trade talks with these countries?
I would, but I don't think we're going to have that necessity. We made a great deal with China. We're very happy with it. We have everything we need, and we're going to do very well with it, and hopefully they are too. That was a very big one. As you know, we did with the UK, and I tell you what, we're rocking in terms of deals. Now, at a certain point, we're just going to send letters out, and I think you understand that, saying this is the deal. You can take it or you can leave it. You don't have to use it. You don't have to shop in the United States, as I said. So at a certain point, we'll do that. We're not quite ready. We're dealing with quite a few countries, and they all want to make a deal with us, every one of them.
Who's next? Who are you expecting to get a deal with next?
Well, we're dealing with Japan. We're dealing with South Korea. We're dealing with a lot of them. We're dealing with about 15 countries, but as you know, we have about 150 plus, and you can't do that. So we're going to be sending letters out in about a week and a half, 2 weeks, to countries, telling them what the deal is, like I did with EU.
And are you happy with the EU right now? You were unhappy with them about 10 days ago.
Well, I'll let you know in about a week. They do want to negotiate, I will say that.
What is it happening waiting here for Governor Newsom?
Brian, I'm glad you're here.
Glad to be here. What does it mean to be here tonight? Now this is your administration, bringing class back, golden era of healing.
We have a golden era here in the country. You see the trade numbers came in today. They're fantastic. The deficit was cut in half over a period of 2 months. We cut what they tried to destroy our country. They were destroying our country. And you saw how good the numbers were. We took in $88 billion in tariffs in 2.5 months. And that we didn't even start yet. No, we're bringing the country back fast. And I'm very proud to have helped Los Angeles survive. Los Angeles right now, if we didn't do what we did, would be burning to the ground. And that's not over yet. You know, these are radical left lunatics that you're dealing with. And they're tough, they're smart, they're probably paid, many of them, as you know, they're professionals. When you see them chopping up concrete, because the bricks got captured, they're chopping up concrete and they're using that as a weapon. That's pretty bad. Thank you very much for your question.
You're a New Yorker, you've been to a million theaters. Do you remember your first theater production?
Well, a long time ago. I would say maybe it was Cats.
Cats. But First Lady, do you remember your first theater production you saw?
A Phantom of the Opera. Are you the this year?
We're going to munch on some popcorn and Diet Coke tonight while we watch this.
I think so. I think I will do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, we have been watching live, listening live here on the Hill. Thank you for staying with us. 6:50 here in Washington. As you can see there, the President of the United States and the First Lady. We don't normally cover red carpets here on the Hill, but this isn't an ordinary event, I guess. It is the President at the Kennedy Center just down the road from us and taking in the opening night there of Les Mis. And as you just heard there on the red carpet, not asked, who are you wearing, but asked a host of issues for the Commander-in-Chief. Full panel here with me now. Mick Mulvaney, Trump's former Chief of Staff in the first White House, NewsNation contributor. Jonay Wartell is a Democratic strategist. Hannah Brandt, Washington correspondent, and Michael Schnell, congressional reporter for The Hill. Hello to you all. We all witnessed a first together.
That's right.
How about that?
You can ask me who I'm wearing?
You're wearing my tie. I know that.
I'm wearing a bourbon. This is a bourbon special.
That's great. Here was the whole big windup that I had going into this until the president spoke live, and we heard from him, and we'll get to that. But it was, if you think about the two big issues out on the campaign trail, it was one, immigration, and two, the economy. Both of those are playing out right now as the two big stories today. Obviously, what we're seeing in Southern California right now, and then on the economy, inflation numbers coming in, and the president getting he calls it a trade deal, but I would refer to it as sort of a trade truce with China, Mick.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty good week from that perspective, right? He's talking about what he wants to talk about. Every president wants to do that. They want to sort of fight on their issues, not on the opposition's issues. Polling data still a little soft. At least we got some soft polling data for the president here today.
Minus 11 on immigration, minus 16 on deportation.
He was, but it was plus 11 or 12 on Monday in a different poll that we talked about on the show. So you got to sort of wait and see how it shakes out. But I got to think if you're the president going out tonight, you're thinking this is good. This has been a good week for me. Let's go see the show.
It's interesting. You see the president kind of reframing the narrative a bit here, deflecting on what are obvious signs that his administration is not delivering, right? They have not created a narrative that looks like they're really winning on these key issues. And that's why you see their approval sliding on deportations, on immigration. So the president's really doing a little bit of cleanup here, trying to kind of make it look like he's still in charge and that he has a handle on these issues. But even with the talks with China, I mean, this is really a pause and maybe a bit of a pivot, but it's not really a plan, right? And this is really him saving face in front of what have been really not a forward movement with China.
So pop it up if we can. The trade truce with China, one of the big stories there. The tariffs. The U.S. maintains 55% tariffs on Chinese imports. China will curb export controls. There's the rare earth minerals, which is of big importance to the president and this country, as Beijing basically controls about 70% of them. They agree to supply to the U.S. and then college students. It will allow Chinese students to attend American universities, Hannah. For the president, on a day in which you have that image out there in Southern California, which he is going to stick on, he also, as we heard him talk on the red carpet, bring up this framework with China.
Yeah, and framework is right? That could change. And 55%, that's still high.
Yep.
The economists I've talked to say we actually haven't seen the impact of tariffs yet. Many of them are on pause right now and are kind of going into effect in a scattered fashion. But they say the second half of this year is when we might feel those. And if Americans start to feel that, I mean, I think that'll have an impact.
Where do you think he is tonight?
I think that he's in a good place tonight. He has the situation that hits all of his items in the trifecta. You think about this Los Angeles story. It hits immigration, which is a winning issue for him. It hits law and order, which is another one that he likes to lean into. And then you add in the bonus that he gets to take on California Democrats, which is the boogeyman for Republicans. Sprinkle in a little bonus that Gavin Newsom is in the midst of this. Those two like to spar with each other. I think that this story and the China framework story is distracting from things like what's going on in that building behind us that I've been following. They're issues with that big, beautiful bill. Republicans are fighting over it. They're going to slip past that July 4th deadline. We're not talking about that right now, though, because we're talking about China. We're talking about Los Angeles. It's a good pivot for the president.
On inflation, Jonay, CPI, this is basically the inflation metric. Let's show the chart real quick. It went up under Biden, and it came right back down. And that is the good story for the president to tell, is it not?
Well, I think in some ways, again, there's a narrative to be framed here that, there's been some movement to the president's favor, and I think he's got to take the victory lap while he has it. Well, you're going to still see some movement here, right? You're going to see new inflation numbers that are perhaps not going to be favorable to the president. So if I'm him, if I'm in his administration, I'm taking the lap while I can get it, right? There's still a lot happening that we have not seen, that American consumers are going to be impacted. The job market's going to be impacted. There's a lot of economic news still yet to come out in this administration. So if I'm him, I take the W while it looks like a W, because there's some L's to come for sure.
I would have expected inflation to be up. I would have. I think Michael's right that there's still economists out there saying it's off. I mean, it was Hannah who said still a couple months off, but I thought it would have been here by now. Maybe you can make the argument it takes a while for it to flow through the supply chain. But I think everybody, at least on the Republican side of the aisle, is sort of breathing a sigh of relief, because we thought the numbers would be higher by now, and they haven't been. That China number is still big, by the way. If that's the permanent number, 55%, holy cow, that's going to be an issue.
I think that kind of got lost a little bit in all this. Here was Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, earlier today.
China has agreed to open their markets to the United States separately of this deal. And when it comes to this deal, we're going back to the terms that were agreed upon in Geneva for the release of some of those critical minerals and the magnets from China to the United States.
Mick, I was going back and I was looking at the phase one trade deal from the last administration. It was 91 pages, right? A lot different than this today. And to me, the takeaway was the tariffs still stay at 55%. That's a big number.
There's a bunch of fun detail in here to sort of dig into, and it sort of gives you an insight as to what's important to the two governments. Yes, we get a permanent tariff. It looks like at 55%. Yes, we get rare earth minerals, which are important to us. What do the Chinese get? They get their students being able to go to school here. That's fascinating to me that they sort of put that on the same plane.
But there was also some export controls too.
There are. Again, it's not exactly apples to apples, but that was in the Chinese category. They want their kids to study here, and I think that's a yellow flag for me.
I think it's important to point out that the president has really just only shown us this framework. We haven't seen from the Chinese side what they are getting, and all of these other countries that we heard him just mention, Japan, South Korea, they don't have deals yet. We heard the president just say, we're going to send them a letter in a couple of weeks with the deal that we'd like to see. But they had said, the 90 deals in 90 days that we had been hearing, and they've only announced a couple.
What are you looking for, Michael, with you cover that building behind me with this as the backdrop?
I mean, the big, beautiful bill is the biggest thing. I'm going to bring it back to the Los Angeles protests right now. Senate Republicans today heard from border czar Tom Homan, and he said, look, we need this money. Republicans are using what's going on in California as an argument to supplement their arguments that they need this big, beautiful bill passed. There's a significant amount of money for the border in that piece of legislation. As I mentioned, some disagreements on a host of issues are dogging the legislation, threatening to plow it past that July 4th deadline. Republicans in the White House right now are trying to make this argument confident that because of what's happening on the West Coast, we need to get this done. Will it be effective? That's the big thing I'm watching.
By the way, live look at
By the way, that never works. Artificial deadlines don't get people to vote for stuff.
Though the debt limit is coming up, so it's artificial.
The debt limit is not artificial. The debt limit is a real deadline, and the August recess is a real deadline.
Because they don't want their vacation.
Yep.
By the way, you know where they're going to be talking about this? Live look at the congressional baseball game.
Hey now.
What'd you know? Look at that. Taking place a couple miles down the road here, Nats Park, a bipartisan annual tradition since 1909. Democratic and Republican members of Congress compete in America's pastime, all to benefit local charities, including the Boys and Girls Club of Washington. By the way, they have raised millions of dollars every single year when you start to add it all up over time as a result of this congressional baseball game. You played in this?
I did, and you cut out the story about the Democrats trying to recruit big-time baseball players to run for office, which I completely approve of. We did the same thing. John Smoltz, the ex-Atlanta Brave, was thinking about running for Congress back in 2011. We were getting our butts kicked by Cedric Richmond, the Democrats, and we made a strong push to try to get him run for Congress, and he wouldn't do it. This is a blood sports night. This is one of the best nights of the year, if you remember.
Adam Wainwright's one of the greatest right-handed pitchers of the last couple decades, and there's a report that the Democrats are trying to, or the Republicans?
Democrats
trying to recruit him. Thank you all. Got to leave it there.